So I would like to thank the organizers of the conference. So I had the honor to speak, to be the last speaker, but sadly I will be the last. So studying the history of photography as a technology was focused on the dominating processes like daguerreotype, calotype, and ambrotype. The chance which emerged in late 1840s to use glass as the basis for a emulsion layer was associated with the opportunity to produce the unlimited number of prints. That invention was a breakthrough in developing the negative positive process. But this invention was not only contributed to the development of negative positive process, but also invested life into photographic techniques that used glass media not as an intermediary stage for the process of getting a print on paper, but rather a work of art. So pioneers of the new art investigated the opportunities of photographic technologies, trying to get beyond the limits of the standard flat image. The first photos on glass were quite fragile, but it was used as a basis for emulsion layer. The high quality of image produced that stereo effect. In 1850 in Philadelphia, brothers Langenheim get a patent for the first photographic slides for Lanterna Magica, or magic lantern. So the picture or the slide for the magic lantern is a positive on glass. In most cases, the emulsion is protected by the second layer of the thin glass, and it's all fixed at the edges by black paper strip. So actually this new tradition related with the theater was revived. The popularity of the magic lantern is an integral element of the fair show increased. It is no longer an element for entertaining grown-ups and children, and using the projector to show photographs allowed lecturers to use this innovative technology for a dialogue with at school or with an audience of students. So this breakthrough really influenced teaching of the art history. So during one lecture, a person could visit different parts of the world and see the best exhibits from the best museums of the world. So this is that way this form of teaching persists still now. So as for the Tretyakov gallery, so from February 1932, the official collections of diapositives started to be built, which by now includes 60,000 of exhibits. And so photographic enterprises like Negretti and Zambra in Great Britain and Ferrier photograph from France, which became the work in 1850s, became the pioneers in producing of slides and stereo parts. The pioneers from photography from England and France never hesitated to broaden their horizons. So in 1850s, traveling photographers following the trend for exotics would visit the Mediterranean countries. And of course, the monuments of ancient civilizations of Egypt, Greece, Rome, and the enigmatic Islamic world of the Middle East was in demand. Negretti and Zambra was founded in 1850 by Italians Henry Negrete and Joseph Warren Zambra. The first of the two partners became known as one of the pioneers of British photography by upgrading photographic cameras and organizing the production of high-quality stereoscopic images, which began from the Egyptian series by an English photographer, Francis Frith. The company would buy negatives from the photographers and assume all the costs for productions and distribution of glass stereocouples and slides for the Magica lantern. Francis Frith was one of the most outstanding traveling photographers of the time. He was founder of the largest photographic enterprise in English, F. Frith and Company. So he gained his reputation due to 3 expeditions to the Middle East between 1856 and 1860. So he was one of the founder of the Liverpool Photographic Society. So his enthusiasm was combined with the resourceful brain of an entrepreneur. Before the Victorian Brittany was familiar with the Middle East due to written reports, drawings and lithographs by a Scottish artist David Roberts. So engineer Francis Herbert Wenham accompanied him. So the equipment included 3 cameras. One of them was stereoscopic. Despite difficulties related to use of the collodion process, Frith managed to take photographs of many ancient monuments all across Egypt. When he came back to England in summer 1832, his album with albumine prints was published by James Whirtle, and the photo archive of Tretyakov Gallery contains part of his from diapositives from his Egypt series. In 1987, Negrete and Zambra started to publish these negatives as stereocouples and diapositives. For Ferrier photograph, two photos were taken by the founder, Claude-Marie Ferrier, who from 1850s was a participant of photographic expeditions using the technique of the famous French optic Jules Dubuissac. And today, the Tretyakov Gallery stores slides of this French company, which allows you to learn about monuments of Italy, Greece, France, Spain, Turkey, Lebanon. These diapositives were taken from negatives related to series from different years, including the first foreign trip of Ferrier in 1853-1854. So both firms published catalogs of their products. They allow us to identify glass prints today. And Francis Frith offered his own system of numbering for negatives. And it's possible not just to find a legend of the manufacturer, but also the signature of the photographer and his number of negatives. Both photographic companies began to produce glass stereocouples with landmarks of Europe and the Middle East. And stereo images were very popular in 1850. Later on, the fashion faded out, and the mobile practice of attractions, well, the trend turned for the magic lantern, and after 1870, so the use of older negatives became more profitable. The main circumstances that helped to establish a new production was that the sizes of stereo couples and slides coincided. So diapositives from the collection of Tretyakov gallery were produced following this technology. When out of one stereo couple cut in two parts, it would be possible to make two slides. So to identify a half, if it was a left or right, you can use legend along the bottom edge of the image. Nikita Yerofeev and Ferrier photograph would use the text with the description of the site on the left side of the stereo couple. So you have a look at two diapositives with a Traian kiosk at Phil Island, produced by Nikita Yerofeev, which are prints from one and the same stereo negative. So on the first slide you have a legend and Francis Fritz's signature, on the other, no text. So you can conclude that the first comes from the left part of the stereo couple and the second from the right one. So many descriptions contain information on attribution of the artifact, which became outdated. However, the landmark itself may have changed, like with the kiosk of Traian, the monument changed its location after the Aswan Dam was constructed. The monument was moved from Philly Island to Agilkia Island, which is 500 meters away. So depending on the object, Francis Frith would choose different locations for filming. And thinking about the compositions due to a difference in negative format. For the same Philly Island, you see a river boat where Frith, together with his assistants and equipment, was traveling along the Nile, but on the album Mind print you still see a tent which was used as a darkroom by the photographer. So on the one hand, in the first case, this boat went out well with the horizontal composition, and in the second case, the photograph had to put the boat away. So Frith and Ferrier tried to show the everyday life of the places they visited. So in 1980s, taking photograph was possible only in case of long exposure. So these scenes were stages, and this was nothing new. This technique was borrowed from the practice of landscape painters. So, and these human figures helped them to resolve the same goals as for the graphic painters. So a figure of human being close to the monument helped the viewer to understand the scale of the monument. So Francis Frith used that technique quite often. So when he was taking photographs of monuments on Gizeh Plateau, he puts local guys before the big Sphinx, and you see a group of three people, a tourist dressed as a European, and two locals that accompanies him. And on photographs of both photographers, you can see locals in ethnic suits and travelers. You can also easily identify by their clothes.
And Claude-Marie Ferrier's photographic slide with a view of Erechtheion in Acropolis, we can see a Greek in Ferrier and shooting Sorry. Claudia's amphitheater is not present here. But anyway, both photographers shot ancient buildings not only from the standard position of a viewer that is looking in admiration at the building, either in the vicinity or remotely, but they also were trying to find a good angle, installing the camera somewhere high, and the photography where we can see part of architectural complex with the path towards the temple was made from the roof, like in diapositive of Ferrier, Demeter's villas in Pompeii. And there he selects such a viewpoint that gives a good look at the atrium with the swimming pool. Ferrier paid more attention to some monuments, photographing them from different angles, and the Tretyakov gallery has three pictures for the magic lantern or lanterna, Magica, with Roman Colosseum. The time of photographing was determined by the intensity of lighting, and the photographers were not afraid of sharp and even rough shadows. For example, Ferrier's photography Druse's arch in Rome has the whole foreground occupied by a large shadow. In diapositives, we sometimes see interiors of the famous architectural monuments. However, the problems with lighting did not give the opportunity to shoot the interiors in high quality. However, photographers could look for an atrium or open gallery, and that is what Ferrier opted for pretty often, and we can see two diapositives from the Tretyakov gallery collections. So here we can see Flavian Amphitheater in Pozzuoli and Lion Court in Alhambra residency in Granada, where he went in 1861. So photographers of the 1850s were attracted not only by architecture but also painting. Photographing painting in the mid-19th century is yet a too complex process on many reasons of technical character that have been mentioned a lot today. However, understanding the need to increase the thematical borders of this product thanks to painting came in the 1850s, because it was clear how convenient Lanterna Magica was in educational goals, and the author of the article is thinking and pondering on that in English Chambers Journal that is devoted to an extremely successful practice of showing slides by Negretti and Zambra. And the journalist describes the success in the following way. Every time it gathered full house, which witnesses that the spectators were really pleased and received a lot of useful information. And afterwards, the author says that he sees no reasons why paintings cannot be photographed and shown in that way. This problem was solved with time. However, it is worth pointing out that producers of slides for Lanterna Magica were also dealing with glass stereophoto production that were printed from the same negatives. And the company of Claude-Marie Ferrier for a long time considered diapositives production only as additional source of income, selling halves of broken stereo pairs. And Architectural monuments and sculptural monuments could be used ideally for creating shooting of 3D objects. Sculptural sculptures, the early photography became objects of reproduction. For Daguerre and Bayer, gypsum busts were ideal models because of their whiteness and stillness, and Talbot included two photographs of Patroclus in his pencil of nature, and Francis Frith shoots sculpture in the open air, Ferrier shoots sculpture in museums, and the Tretyakov gallery has diapositives with the works from Louvre, Uffizi, Capitol Museum, and Vatican Museum. And the photographs made in museums are valuable because we can see the museum context of the 19th century, all the labels and tags that helped the visitor. For example, one of the diapositives devoted to the Vatican collection, the famous antique statue of Apoxia Man, is photographed in the new gallery of Chiaramonti Museum, whereas today it is shown in Apoximion room in Pio Clementino Museum. And the statues of Pope collection could be observed only in daylight. Therefore, a photographer had very limited time for shooting. Photographer working in a museum had approximately similar rights as an artist that came to practice in copying works of art. And the photographic slide from Uffizi gallery depicting the sculpture of Niobe with her younger daughter shows the Molbert on the background. And copying had also educational value. However, not always a photographer leaves us a chance to have a look at what was around the sculpture at the moment of shooting, because there was a tradition of retouching the negative so that nothing can distract the viewer from the object of the shooting. Therefore, very often we can see that the background for statues of white marble becomes black. In Ferrier, we can find two examples of that. That is a Roccentucelli antique statue photo from Pio Clemente Museum, and a Tyron stricken with lightning by François Dumont from Louvre. And this treatment could also go to architectural monuments, images, and technologies of the 1850s allowed to use only long time of exposure, and if there was some motion or movement, it was registered in the negative. Therefore, photographers were forced to clear the background. And most vivid these manipulations are on the slides where Ferrier photographed ruins of antique temples. Ancient cities and works of art have become globally known thanks to this technical miracle of photography. Diapositives, as part of other photographic production, enabled people to go into this trip in times. And photograph in glass, that is stereo pairs and diapositives, were the result of the search of first photographers and entrepreneurs who were striving to make their hobby beneficial and profitable. And the profit of photographer producer enabled the link of two completely different forms of presentation of photographed material in volumetric image that one viewer could see thanks to stereoscope, and as a projection on the screen that could be seen by many people. And stereo pairs on glass very often stepped aside before practical analogs on paper, whereas glass diapositives were in demand up to 1960s, and photographic slides were used in different aims in advertising, as station indicators in railway cars. Christian missionaries to India took them with them, and the Lanterna Magica was applied in many other spheres. Thanks to Lanterna Magica and photography, the whole industry turned up, and there is also a global practice of lectures with Lanterna Magica, where a lecturer acted as a showman. And we can say that thanks to stereoscope and Lanterna Magica, after the invention of photography, cinematography became possible. First stereoscopes production in 1851 opened the eyes for the cinema inventors. Looking at the still figures in space, photographers guessed that motion is what was needed for it to reflect life, and the popularity of images with the Lanterna Magica projected at the screen defined the form of cinema demonstration. Thank you very much for your attention.